Good afternoon. This is Blue Laker. And Blue Laker is all about Cobra, Cobra USA. Well, we do other things as well, but right now, the most important thing that I can think of is trying to create a new system to replace Obamacare. And that's where Cobra comes in. Now, Cobra is not a health insurance plan. It's the law. Hear me again. Cobra is not a health insurance plan. It is the law. It was created in 1985 by then President Ronald Reagan, and has been on the books since that time. There have been some amendments to the law, and the law is about 48 pages long. It's not 10,000. You don't have to sign it and read it later. You can read it now and find out what it's all about. Mainly, King Cobra, which is not Cobra, but King Cobra, is intended to be a modified version of the 1985 law created by Ronald Reagan. Cobra, the original, covers pre-existing medical conditions, allowing insurance coverage to continue for up to 18 months. Now, unlike that program, King Cobra does not cover pre-existing conditions or catastrophic conditions during the first year of King Cobra membership. It would definitely have lower premiums, lower deductibles, and they could be lowered incrementally for those in good health or those who do not exceed the limitations. Additionally, it could be either a tax deduction or a tax credit. And we're going to talk about that. Doing so benefits individual small businesses, corporations, and the administrators of the King Cobra Act. That helps defray the cost of the original Cobra. I know it sounds confusing, but the original Cobra is the law. And the reason it isn't as widely accepted as some of the other insurance programs is because there's a pretty hefty premium. But we're addressing that. And what we're doing is we're actually separating King Cobra from the Cobra program. This would definitely do away with Obamacare. It would provide the instant coverage and increase membership while a final medical act is under construction. It would save millions of dollars, time and expense, as well as all the bickering and political factions and political objections. Now, if you need to find out more about that, first of all, there's going to be a considerable amount of this online. At Blue Laker, that's cobra.bluelaker@gmail.com. Look forward to that information, but now, as I promised you, I wanted to talk about the lower premiums and deductibles obtainable under King Cobra. When you diversify or amend a program, you're able to separate different groups of needs. What do I mean by that? Well, when we have pre-existing conditions for some people and no pre-existing conditions for others, those that have good health should not have to pay the cost of other people. It's that simple. And so by allowing them to stay in Cobra for up to 18 months, they can arrange for new insurance. Either that's going to be a government-sponsored program under Cobra, or it's going to be another program, but they'll have 18 months, and I'm saying they, meaning Congress, to pull this together and make a law that is representative of all the people and fairly. Because right now, it's like we seem to have a problem with understanding that if you go to the gas station and you get regular, it's going to be less expensive than super. Well, there is a difference. It's perhaps only 10 or 15 cents more, but that 10 or 15 cents more gives the additional coverage. So we have to look at other things exactly the same way. So what I wanted to talk to you about again is that premiums will be lowered and deductibles lowered, especially for those people who take care of themselves. Again, we don't have to suffer because other people won't take care of themselves. Now, I'm not saying that people with pre-existing conditions are not taking care of themselves. They have sometimes situations that are unavoidable, mostly medical issues, and it's not that the medical issues are insurmountable, but generally speaking, when you have surgeons getting involved in the process, your costs go up. When you have hospital stays and they run for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, obviously those costs have to be taken into consideration before the event takes place or there's no coverage. Well, we want to allow for that, but we're going to give some benefits to those people who want to help. That's right, want to help in lowering those premiums for those people in the Cobra plan. Remember, Cobra is different than King Cobra. So how's that going to work? Well, let me explain it to you. For those who want to help with the Cobra program, they're going to have deductibles or a tax credit that will be returned to them at the end of the year. Now you can say, well, how does that work? It's pretty simple. There will be monthly premiums that have to be maintained, just like anything else. Your car insurance, your life insurance, all of those things, they must be maintained or you don't have them anymore. The advantage to the person helping is that they have either an exemption, a tax exemption, or a tax credit. So let me be very clear about the differences. A tax deduction is where you amass all of your costs, expenses, and so forth, and take them off your tax return. Well, that's okay if that's what you want to do. On the other hand, a tax credit simply means this. If you owe Uncle Sam, let's say $2,500, and you have a tax credit for $2,000, you're only going to send Uncle Sam $500. Now, do you understand the difference? That's the difference, is that you have credit towards your tax program. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, first of all, you don't have that under normal circumstances. You have to pay the total amount. Let's say you owe $2,500 and you didn't have this advantage. You have to send a check for $2,500. But if you have kept up with the premiums, now I know this sounds a little bit confusing, but it is not, because I don't do anything that's complex. I do things that are simple. And so when we talk about simplicity, we're saying, okay, you make these payments, and at the end of the year, we give it back to you. Well, why is that beneficial to you? I would explain that. You don't have to pay it at the end of the year and you get it back. Well, why not just take it as a tax deduction? That's up to you. The actual benefit is that at the end of the year, at a tax deductions, you're not going to get as much money as you will with a tax credit. Now, what does that mean to a large company? It means, again, it's the same thing, that they're going to have this tax credit. It's money that they don't have to pay at the end of the year, and they get it back. Well, how can you give it back? Well, I'm going to tell you how you can give it back. Because you're making monthly payments. Those monthly payments are going into a repository. That repository is going to be just like a bank. Oh, what do you mean just like a bank? Well, how much money does a bank actually have? Think about it. The bank doesn't have any money at all, except your money. It's your money that the bank has. Now they're holding it for you and they're using it. And they're using it in a profitable way or they wouldn't be able to operate. And they've got, in some cases, 10, 20, 30, 40, 100,000 employees. And so they have a huge overhead. And since they're using your money, it's called OPM. Oh yeah, not the kind the doctor gives you, but other people's money. That other people's money is you. You have the ability as a human being to either be the bank or pay the bank. So you're paying the bank and they're taking your money and they're using it, and when they're done with it, they give it back to you because it's yours. So I hope you understand what's going on here. That as a repository, and I do believe the repository will be in silver and gold. That is to say, that the monies collected from this process will have assets in gold and silver. Now, what's the advantages of that? Well, there's a lot of advantages and some disadvantages, but the disadvantage is that the repository has taken an obligation to repay you in full. That is to say, if over the course of the year you put in $2,000 or $4,000 or $10,000 or $100,000, it doesn't make any difference. They're giving you a guarantee that you can have your money back at any time. Well, what if gold and silver drop? Well, what if gasoline drops? What if gasoline goes up? Well, are you complaining about that too? No, you don't. You just pay it, right? Is there a certain amount of risk? Yes, but not when the repository guarantees that you will get your money back. And that's the difference, is that now it's a win-win situation for everybody. And you can say, well, they're using my money and they should pay me more money. Well, no, they shouldn't pay you more money because they're giving you a tax deduction and you're getting your money back. So, what's fair is fair. Now, what's more important about King Cobra than anything else is that it allows people who have previous existing condition to have continuing benefits for up to 18 months. During that 18 months, they need to find a replacement insurance. Cobra is not an insurance program. They are basically administrators, and they pay the insurance companies that are under the program. So, let me explain that. Let's say that Boeing, for example, has an insurance policy with Aetna, and Aetna is taking care of Boeing. But Aetna is under obligation because of Cobra, because it's a law, that they have to continue that policy if you are temporarily or permanently dislocated from the job, meaning even if it's voluntary, even if you quit, makes no difference. But if you get fired, it's the same thing. Whether you quit or you get fired, they have to continue that policy for you. Now, if you quit, you could be responsible for 100% of what they were paying. So there's certain conditions that you have to observe. In addition to the 100%, then under Cobra, you'd pay an additional 2%, so you'd be paying 102%. So your penalty for quitting is 2%. Now, 2% of $100 is $2. So it's not outrageous. It's just the law. And if you're going to want to continue with that program, you have to pay it. Now, what happens if it's under King Cobra? Well, first of all, and here's where you have to pay attention. If you have a pre-existing condition and you decide to join King Cobra, the pre-existing condition will not take effect until a year, until you've been with the program for over a year. Well, how does that work? Well, it's simple. You stay with the original Cobra for whatever period of time that you need, because it's up to 18 months. Then you can switch over. So you need to think about cost. You also need to think about your health, which is probably the most important factor, because without your health, what have you got? So does money matter? Of course it matters. And can we reduce the cost of medical practice? Yes, we can. You can't do it necessarily with some of the insurance companies, but you certainly can do it when you have a credit union or you have your own association or group health plan, and you can curtail those costs. Many things that you can do to augment your health. Now, we can't get into that now because it's just too much to talk in just a little bit of time. But what we can say is that if you want to investigate Cobra under the existing 1985 plan, and by the way, it's been amended 2 or 3 times, and that's a good part of a law. You can amend it, obviously, by going through Congress in this particular case and getting the support of your congressional leaders. And that's what we can do. Unlike a new plan, or Obamacare, where it had to go through Congress in order to be ratified into law, an existing law is different. So, what we speak about is the ability to immediately give coverage to everyone that's covered under Obamacare. Now that's very important, because how can we get rid of it if we don't have a replacement? Is it a permanent replacement? That's hard to say, because if all of the information that's contained in King Cobra is satisfactory to our congressional delegates and to the people, then yes, it could be. But what if it's not? Well, then that's what they're working on. They're trying to come up with a plan that meets all the demands. Unfortunately, it is never going to please 100% of the people, because there's always going to be dissenters. I don't care if you got the goose that laid the golden egg. There's always going to be somebody that says it's brass, or says it doesn't work, or naysayers, if you were, who are not concerned about, they're not concerned about the welfare of America. They're concerned about idiosyncrasies that probably have no bearing. We do get tired of hearing all the opposition making false claims, saying things that are repressive to society, saying things that are delaying other important actions that need to be taken care of by the president. And it's time we stop that. The only way we can stop that is by putting forth programs that meet and have the acceptance of the majority of Americans, and that's exactly what King Cobra is all about. Now I'm going to read you a little bit more information and tell you exactly where you can go. Oh, well, I didn't mean it that way. Where you can go to get the information about Cobra. And Cobra, by the way, is what did I do with it? Oh, that's something. I'll have it for you in a second. Cobra is just an abbreviation for the Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1985. It has added healthcare continuation requirements that apply to group health plans. Coverage required to be provided under those requirements is referred to as Cobra continuing coverage. Proposed regulations interpreting the Cobra continuation coverage requirements were published in the Federal Regulator Register of June 15, 1987, and of January 7, 1996. This document contains final regulations based on these two sets of proposed regulations. The first regulation also reflects statutory amendments in the Cobra continuation coverage requirements, since Cobra was enacted a new set of proposed regulations addressing additional issues under the Cobra conditional coverage provisions is being published elsewhere in this issue of Federal Register. The regulations will generally affect sponsors of and participants in group health plans affecting, and they will provide plan sponsors and plan administration with guidance necessary to comply with the law. Dates effective. These requirements or regulations are effective February the 3rd of 1999. Applicably, dates, sections 54.49.608-1. That's 54.49.60B-1 through 54.49.80B-8 that apply to group health plans with respect to qualifying events occurring in plan years beginning on or after January the 1st, 2000. See the effective date portion of the preamble and questions and answers 2 of section 54.49.80B-1. Now, for further information, you can contact Yolinda Martha at area 202-622-4695. This is not a toll-free number. This information that I'm reading to you is the Cobra law information, and it is 48 pages long. It's pretty clear that I'm not going to be able to read the whole thing to you. You have to take it upon yourself to check it out and go to Cobra Law Information /CobraInsurance.com. 48 pages of Cobra Law information. Benefits and so forth are explained in part of that, but not in total, because those regulations and everything are separate, qualifying and other things. Here's the overview. The regulators are the printer is awful small. Is intended to provide clear administrative rules regarding Cobra continuing coverage. The regulations give comprehensive guidelines on many questions under Cobra with a view to enhancing the certainty and relevance available to all parties, including employers, qualified beneficiaries, employers, and obligations. The guideline is designed to further the protective purposes of Cobra without undue administrative burdensome costs on employees, employers, organizations, or group health plans. For example, the regulations provide group health plan from terminating Cobra continuation coverage on the basis of other coverage that qualifies that qualified beneficiaries had prior to electing Cobra continuing coverage. In accordance with the Supreme Court, in accordance with the Supreme Court's decision in Geyser versus Moore Medical Group. So it's been through the Supreme Court. Give employers and employee organizations significant flexibility in determining, for purposes of Cobra, the number of group health plans they maintain. This will reduce burdens on employers and employee organizations by permanently giving and permitting them to introduce their group health plan in an effort and cost-effective manner and to satisfy their Cobra obligations based upon their structure. It is to provide baseline rules for determining the Cobra liabilities of buyers and sellers of components, stock, and corporate assets, and permit buyers and sellers to reallocate and carry out those liabilities by agreement. This will significantly enhance employer ability to negotiate and to plan appropriately and approximately for the treatment of qualified beneficiaries in connection with mergers and acquisitions while protecting the rights of qualified individuals. And beneficiaries affected by the transaction. Limit the application of Cobra for most health flexible spending arrangement. This will ensure the Cobra continuation coverage under health flexibility spending arrangements is available in appropriate cases without requiring continuation coverage where that would not serve the statutory purpose. Eliminate the requirement that group health plans after qualified beneficiaries the option to effect and elect only core health coverage under a group welfare plan that otherwise provides both core and non-core vision and dental coverage. Give employers in determining whether the small employer plan exception applies. The opinion or the option of counting by pay period rather than by every business day and provides for that exception for the consistent treatment of patients, employees, or part-time employees through its use of full-time equations. The Cobra continuation coverage requirement enacted by April 7, 1986 have been amended by the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1986. The Tax Year Reform Act of 1956, IRA 15.6, the Technical and Miscellaneous Revenue Act of 1966, the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1985, the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation of 1990, the Small Business Job Protection Act of 1996, SB.IPA, and the Health Insurance Portability and Accounting Act of 1995. These arrangements made numerous clarifications and modifications to the Cobra continuation coverage requirements. Moved the requirements from 162 parenthesis K to section 49608 and various other features such as disability extension to the required period of coverage not significantly altered, and significantly altered the sanctions imposed on employers and plans for failing to simplify or to comply with the requirements. The specific changes made by those arrangements are discussed below in connection with the provisions of the legislation that refer to them. Again, this is 48 pages long, and I've tried to read some of the more significant information to you. However, in order to get real clarification, you're going to have to take the time and trouble to find out about it yourself, because you may have questions that are unanswered at this point. So, as we continue with this program, because we feel it's very important, and the main reason it's so important is that we're in a crisis here in the United States because we have such a high deficit, because we are not taking care of our own people, and because we have costs that have skyrocketed out of proportion and people just can't afford to take care of themselves anymore. So when you think about all of these things that we talked about, and I hope you will take the time to protect yourself and join us in Cobra to let the administration know that this is out there. They don't have to create a new wheel. We already have it. All we have to do is put it on the axle. So with that in mind, I want to let you know that this is Blue Laker at cobra.bluelaker@gmail.com. And for today, we're going to end the King Cobra program, and we'll pick it up on our next show. Thank you for listening. Again, join us here at Cobra. Make your thoughts known, because our legislatures don't act unless they get some pressure. Put the pressure on them. Thank you for listening.